Well, thank you for having me this morning and supporting me and the work that I do through Theology Network as a mission partner of this church. I'm really grateful for the prayer that you offer for me and all sorts of ways that you've been supporting me. I've been working in this role for UCCF for nearly 4 years now, and I'm just blown away by the way that people have supported me through this, encouraged me, reached out, and just the way that I've seen God's provision and care for me in this time. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about UCCF and the work that I do, since I've not actually spoken on this here. So you might not know who UCCF is, what even Theology Network is, and yet you pray for me, and I'm really grateful. So UCCF is a charity that trains and equips students, university students in Christian unions, to make the most of the opportunity that they have at university and college to share the gospel with their course mates and friends. We're all about students reaching other students with the gospel. Christian unions are mission teams that operate at the heart of university and college campuses. They're led by students, resourced by Christian union staff workers, and supported by the local church. And together we're reaching the student world with Jesus. Our mission is to make disciples in the student world with a vision to give every student in Great Britain an opportunity to hear and respond to the gospel of Jesus. The work that I do within that kind of framework of Christian unions and UCCF is running a ministry called Theology Network. Theology Network is a ministry that seeks to resource and train and disciple theology students in British universities to see their faith deepen and the gospel of Jesus transform their studies. We'd love to see theology students' work shaped thoroughly by the gospel, along with their whole lives, and to see their work overflow in worship of God and witness to their course mates and friends. I work as part of a team that focuses on helping students engage with their studies from a Christian perspective, bringing the gospel, bringing a biblical worldview to everything that they're studying. I have colleagues that focus on a few different subject areas, and overall we cover 7 key subject areas: science, music, art, politics, teaching, law, and of course theology. But broader than that, we exist to sort of help students, whatever they're studying, engage the gospel in their studies, engage with the whole of their lives, and see that God can be glorified, and what they're studying can be a springboard to share the gospel with their friends and course mates. I've got a little video that just gives a taste of what we do with students.
University is lots of fun. Getting away from home, trying new hobbies, building relationships, figuring out what we believe about the world, and just enjoying life with all its clubs and societies, socials and parties. But often, the very reason we're there, our degree, can feel like the boring bit. With so many things to enjoy, is studying just a waste of time? What's more, as we study, we often discover that people in our field consider Christians' views on things to be outdated, irrelevant, and not worth taking seriously. It feels pointless to even try to bring a Christian approach to our work. Yet neither of these views is what we see in the Bible.
Right back at the beginning, we see God create out of nothing. He speaks and boom, things come to be. And this creation is good. With its mountains and rivers, its creatures and people is good. It's very good. And so there's value in studying it. Studying the world helps us better understand the God who made it. We're told in Psalm 19 that the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. The more we see of the world, the more we see of God's work.
As those who have been reconciled to God through Christ, we're sent to take that message of reconciliation into our field of study, working for reconciliation wherever we can. Studying the natural world so we can learn to treat it with respect. Studying societies and economies so we can figure out how to better take care of the world and people. Creating art and music and literature that speaks truth in a world full of lies. All this is good and valuable, and pleases God. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God, writes Paul to the Corinthians.
Yet work by itself is not enough. Romans 1 and 2 tell us that God's creation gives enough information for us to know that there is a God, but it doesn't tell us enough to save us. So we must also proclaim the gospel, not as something disconnected from or opposed to our studies, but as good news for our area of study. We present the gospel as the key ingredient which guides our studies and puts them in their proper place. They are tools by which to know the glory of God and live a life that is pleasing to Him.
This can be challenging. Essay questions about plants or politics don't always obviously lead to the gospel. But if Christ is Lord over all things, He's Lord over those things too. And what a joy it is to be able to point people from our world to the God who made it, the one who made them and calls them to enjoy things as they were intended to be. Putting Him at the heart of our studies means we can offer true meaning and understanding to this confusing world. We can make sense of why a world that is so good can also be so bad. We can show that Jesus is Lord of all the things our friends at uni care about, and why that's a good thing in a world which believes God to be irrelevant, uncaring, or plain non-existent.
So let's join together in studying well to see more of the glory of God and communicate that glory to the world around us, that Christ might be magnified.
So my role is to take this big vision of Christ's lordship over everything that we do and help theology students apply it to their studies in particular and apply it to everything that's involved in studying theology. There's some challenges to this. For students of theology, their degree itself can be quite a challenging place to be, studying theology in secular universities. They find questions and challenges from their lecturers as directly shaking their faith, shaking the foundations of what they believe. They encounter skeptical approaches to the Bible, to God, to basic Christian beliefs, to the notion of power or institutions like the church. And the first step for many theology students is simply to survive and preserve their faith in the 3 years that they're studying at university. But there are also opportunities studying theology for these students. They're studying directly the things of God. They get to encounter the Bible every day in their class. They get to have conversations with their course mates about what they believe on a regular basis. They have seminars and lectures that touch on Jesus, His resurrection, His death, what that means. And so for students who can find those stable foundations, the process of questioning and shaking clears out lots of unhelpful assumptions for them. It gives them a much more resilient faith, able to weather the storms of life. And it gives them that opportunity to share the gospel with their friends. So I've been working for the past 4 years supporting students through these challenges, helping them try and make the most of these opportunities that they have for effective witness and deep whole life worship of God. And I do this at sort of 3 different levels of impact. So the first of these is the kind of really broad reach resourcing theology students sort of wherever they are. We reach a wide range of theology students with resources for thinking, living, and speaking for Jesus on their course through our website, through our social media, through a monthly email that I send out. And this website's full of articles and resources addressing all sorts of challenges that they face on their course, as well as challenges that just come as Christians studying theology in life. How do you listen to a sermon well when you're taught week on week to analyze critically theological texts? We send out monthly emails with content and encouragement throughout the year, and I pray for all the students that are on that mailing list. So a good portion of my ministry is very behind the scenes. I don't see students a lot in relation to the website. I don't necessarily know all of the individuals that are reading that, but we sort of send that out, and that has a broad reach. But the second is greatest impact. We run training events at key points throughout the year where we get to see a group of students, spend a few intense hours with them, going really deep into a couple of different topics. And we do this in the summer, where we gather 1,000 student CU leaders at a conference called Forum, where they're trained for all sorts of aspects of CU ministry. And one of that aspect is the sort of small handful of theology students that come, get trained at that. And we also run a conference called Enrich in the summer, which my team runs. In June, we'll be taking half a dozen students from each of our networks away for a long weekend. They'll spend time thinking about how the gospel impacts our engagement with us, all of our individual studies, but also thinking about how do we engage with questions that the wider culture is asking. Sometimes, often things that are very divisive between in culture, where you either take this perspective on it or another perspective. For example, in the Trinity, we see that the one and the many are brought together. But in society, the view is either, do you care about individual rights, the freedom of the individual, maybe to do with politics, or do you care about society as a whole? And those things are often kept separate, but in Christianity, we can see that they're brought together in the gospel. So helping students think about that, the theme of this conference is a better way, gospel truth in a divided world, where we'll be helping them think about how they can bring together those kind of thoughts that are often divisive in culture, and see that the gospel brings a better way. The third way is greatest depth, where I get to actually spend time one-to-one with students, discipling them. When I was studying theology in Nottingham, my main contact with Theology Network wasn't with the website or these big events that we do, but in this kind of smaller setting through a local Theology Network hub, which is a group that meets theology students in universities. So there's a hub in Nottingham, and that hub was made up and led by theology students at the University of Nottingham, supported by the Theology Network. And it met weekly to talk about the challenges coming up, what we were studying, to discuss the Bible, be encouraged in ways that the gospel makes a difference to our lives. And this hub was a lifesaver for me while I was a student. I found support, other people who understood the challenges that I was facing, a kind of safe environment to ask difficult questions, to raise things that I've been thinking about, doubts that I was facing. And I'm continually grateful for the Theology Network Hub in Nottingham. And it's my privilege and pleasure to be able to continue to support theology students in Nottingham and in other places through these hubs. We currently have hubs meeting in 5 universities across the country, in Aberdeen, in Edinburgh, Nottingham, Oxford and Cambridge. And in the Nottingham hub, I've been discipling a student in particular named Jack. I met Jack in his first year while I was supporting the hub, and started meeting up with him on a semi-regular basis. I've talked through all sorts of things with him over the past couple of years, including doubts that he's felt about the Bible, about wrestling with God's sovereignty. How can he have freedom if God is totally sovereign? And it's been a joy to see him grow in these questions and grow in his heart for evangelism. He came into his degree really passionate about apologetics and evangelism, and that's just continued to grow and grow as he's matured, as he's engaged deeply with what he's studying. It's been a joy to see him take these things he's been studying as opportunities to not just seek his own answers to his own questions, but the questions that his friends are asking him about faith. That he sees this as an opportunity to dig into those, to bring them better and better answers each time they have those conversations. He's been leading the Theology Network Hub for the last year, and he's going on to lead the Christian Union this coming year in Nottingham. There's students like Jack in the hubs across the country, and my prayer for them is that they would see Jesus in everything that they're studying, that they would be preserved in their faith and grow in their faith and love for Christ, and that they'd be effective witnesses to other theology students in their universities. That's just a really whistle-stop tour snapshot of what I do. I'd love to talk to you more about it if you want to talk to me at the end. But I'd love to keep you informed about the work that I'm doing, send you regular prayer requests. At the moment, I send out a prayer letter every couple of months with things to give thanks for, prayers, things you can pray for me, things you can pray for students that I'm working with. And you can sign up to receive those. I'd love if you consider to pray for me regularly, to receive those prayer letters, to respond to them. It's such an encouragement when people write back and say, I'm praying for you. It's really good to hear how your work's going. It's encouragement to know that people are praying for me. Everything I do is only possible in the strength that the Lord gives. And actually that preserving of theology students isn't in my hands. Whatever resources I give them, whatever conversations I have with them, really it's the Lord working in their hearts that preserves their faith, that helps them to grow and to witness to others about Christ as well. Can I also ask that if you would consider supporting me financially? All the work that we do supporting students is made possible by generous gifts, regular support of people like you that God uses to provide for this ministry. And even a small regular gift would go a long way to allowing me to continue these sort of regular catch-ups that I have with Jack, or the cost of preparing and running events like Enrich. So if you'd like to pray regularly for me, or if you'd consider giving towards the ministry, come talk to me at the end, and I can put your name down for the prayer letters. I can show you how you can take those steps. But I'd love if you would pray for me now, and pray for students, maybe in twos and threes, if you'd gather and pray. And I have just a few requests. Would you pray for students like Jack in the hubs across the country to be preserved in their faith, especially in this time where it's now sort of exam season and leading up to the end of the spring term. Lots of students are preparing for a long summer of exams and essays and assignments coming in. Would you pray that they'd be preserved through the challenges that they face and stirred to share the gospel even in their kind of busy season? Pray for students coming along to Enrich, that they be equipped by that weekend to engage thoughtfully with prominent questions that they face from a biblical perspective. And pray for me as I continue to seek to equip these students and disciple them and help them, that I'd have wisdom, I'd know what to put out there into onto the website, what to focus my time on, who to go and follow up with a message or follow up with a coffee. So if you spend a few moments praying for me, that would be wonderful.